Hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 128. I'm Emily McDermott, and I'm here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. Do you ever feel like life is happening to you rather than for you? Do things feel so chaotic and you never know if things are going to get back on track? Well, today's conversation with Kari Davis is for you. Kari is a wife and a mom, and back in 2015, her husband TJ passed away unexpectedly, which forced her to take an inventory of her own life and figure out what sustainable self-care looked like for her in that season. And she recognized her calling to help moms with the same, to calm the chaos in their lives through natural health and redefining self-care. So Kari is the founder of thewellteam.com and a certified holistic life coach and an essential oils educator. She's also the host of the Well Health and Wholeness podcast, and she's passionate about empowering women with the tools they need to reclaim their life through self-care, health, and finding their identity while embracing the idea of a natural and non-toxic lifestyle in their products and mindset. And she and her husband Bobby live in Naples, Florida with their combined 5 children. And today we're going to be talking about how doing a personal inventory can help you calm the chaos in your life and live more intentionally. So what do you say? Grab that notebook and pen and let's dive into today's conversation with Kari Davis. Hey there, Mama. Are you tired of all the stuff crowding your home, calendar, and mind? Do you wish you could say goodbye to the endless to-do list running around in your head? Want to declutter but don't know where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to Moms Overcoming Overwhelm, where you will find proven and practical solutions to declutter your home, head, and heart. Hi, I'm Emily, a wife, boy mom, and simplicity seeker. I struggled to get pregnant and felt overwhelmed until I discovered decluttering could create the physical and emotional space I needed to become a mom. Now, 2 kids later, I've transformed my life and motherhood by developing simple systems around decluttering, capsule wardrobes, kid stuff, cleaning and tidying, meal planning, time management, and more, and I can't wait to share them with you. If you're ready to reclaim the time and energy you crave, be present with your kids, and finally enjoy the life and motherhood you so deserve, let's kick overwhelm to the curb, shall we? Grab your lukewarm coffee, your notebook and pen, and clear off some counter space. Let's do this. Well, hi, Kari. Thank you so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am very excited to talk to you today.
Oh, me too. I'm so excited to be on your show and I love what you do here.
Well, same. We connected, and then, of course, my kids got sick because that's what they do. So we had to reschedule, but very excited to talk today. And I would love it if you could tell us a little bit about you and your family, how you serve moms, and what you like to do in your free time.
Sure. So I live in Naples, Florida, with my husband, Bobby, and my 3 children, although I have one away at college, but I have an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and then 2 bonus kids that Bobby brought to the equation. They are 13 and 9. And oh man, it's hard to condense all of this. But I was a stay-at-home mom when my kids were little and accidentally stumbled into an essential oil business. And then my life was completely derailed, which I know we're going to talk about today. I call it derailed because I just had always been a planner and I got married at the year I thought I would get married and went to college and had my first baby. And then my husband suddenly passed away in 2015. And so I just had to not completely redefine my purpose because I still had my identity in Christ. I still had my children, but I just felt this calling more in my life and had accidentally started this essential oil business, but then felt more and more that I really wanted to talk to mom about calming the chaos in their lives. Through natural health, but also through redefining self-care when you really lose yourself. And so I I talk we talk about similar things, but I don't do like decluttering. I talk more about redefining self-care and then just finding those ways of going back to the basics of how God meant for us to maybe care for our bodies in ways that modern medicine and just the world today shouts at us. So when I'm not podcasting or teaching essential oil classes, we love to go boating. I also help my husband with his wealth management firm. And so we're not fancy or anything, but we do get out to some fun events in Naples and just we both just have a heart to serve our clients, but we have 5 kids and travel hockey teams and a very full life, but I am just so grateful that the derailment brought me to where I am right now.
Yeah, and I love how one of your fundamental self-care activities is a weekly date. Because I heard that and I was like, okay, Pat and I thought we were doing pretty well with once a month. So maybe we're going to change that because I just think, and we are going to be talking about kind of doing this inventory and really defining like, okay, what are the non-negotiables? And we talk about that a lot here too. But yeah, redefining self-care to like, what does it mean to fundamentally be able to take care of ourselves the way that God intended? I love that. Well, you alluded a little bit to it. I always ask moms, to go back to a season in their motherhood, and it could be yesterday, and it could be years ago when you felt completely overwhelmed. And that derailment that happened, as you were saying, sounds like a good place that would be apropos for that. But I would love to hear more about that, and just kind of like in the midst of that shock and grief, like how were you able to rebuild and kind of like get things back on track, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think of almost when I was a stay-at-home mom, when my kids were little, I almost think of that time as being more overwhelmed. And when you were on my podcast, we talked about this a little bit because I did want my home to be a certain way. And I just always felt this tug between, saying yes to a lot of people, serving at church, watching other people's kids, being the director for VBS, doing all of these things and really not earning any income and then saving, needing to save money because I wasn't earning money. So I remember that time being really overwhelming. But then when TJ passed away in 2015, the overwhelm compounded because I had to do all of those things. I had to be the single mom, but I also still wanted to do everything that I used to be able to do, and I just couldn't. And it was just like this like gut punch of who am I if I'm not the stay-at-home mom, if I'm not and I don't want these new titles that I've now been given. I don't want single. I don't want widow. I don't want single mom. And so I was more overwhelmed at just the loss upon loss upon loss that compounded more than just losing my husband and having to figure out all of the finances and insurances and all of the things, navigating the kids grieving their dad and just wondering if I'm going to be enough or I'm doing the right thing. Am I saying the right thing about death? Are we visiting the grave or should we not visit the grave? Should we talk about him daily or shouldn't we? So I just longed for the overwhelm that used to be of just the cooking and the cleaning and the organizing and all of that. And so it was a really rough time, but I will say that I definitely felt the hand of God the whole time. That I think sometimes when the husband is moved out of the equation, God just moves that much closer to a wife. It's a beautiful time, really. And he also just put a lot of dreams in my heart. I had read this book that said that you start to move through grief when you start to dream. And I do feel like I did that. I kind of began this process of designing a life that I loved. I didn't want to feel overwhelmed anymore. I wanted to feel like I was in the driver's seat and I was designing my life, which kind of led me to the podcast. And really what I did was I set a lot of boundaries. I kind of stopped some codependent behavior. I started taking better care of myself, saying no again. And it was almost kind of like a butterfly when it becomes a chrysalis. That's a messy time. You're doing a lot of healing. You're doing a lot of soul searching. It was very gross, a lot of tears, a lot of screaming. But it's really cool actually looking back how much God had met me in that time.
Yeah, and I love just the beauty, yeah, like you said, that kind of came from all of that. And it's like the things that we go through, we don't necessarily think like, oh yeah, this is what life was going to be like. But then looking back, then you're able to say, like, okay, this is why this happened as far as like what God was able to teach me in this
Yeah.
season. And I love how you're talking about living by design, because we often, as moms and overwhelmed moms, get to that point where we're like, okay, raising the white flag and surrender. I've completely exceeded my capacity. I can't do all the things that I thought that I could do.
Mhm.
And that you decided to live by design rather than what I've heard by living by design rather than default, which is more
Yep.
like saying yes to everything and just doing what the world and what culture expects us to do
Yeah.
as moms and as women. So if the overwhelmed mom that's listening feels kind of like they're in that victim mode, that things keep happening to them, that they're not able to make those decisions proactively, you have spoken before, which I love this concept of doing this personal inventory to really be able to take stock of like, where am I? What's working, what's not? And it's
Mhm.
hard sometimes when we're overwhelmed to realize that that's what we need to do and to take the time to actually do it. But could you walk us through what a personal inventory process might look like for an overwhelmed mom so that we can start living more by intention and not by default?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it feels counterproductive to stop when you're stressed. But your the beautiful design of our bodies is that your body will tell you. I think it's easiest to probably look at your calendar first, and you can just even look through a day and write down everything that you have to do, every responsibility, every meeting, even scheduling in the time that you spend in the bathroom getting ready and you spend getting ready, all of the things, cooking, cleaning, all of the things, and begin to listen to yourself of when your stomach's like, oh, right? Like, is it going to the PTO meeting, or is it, you know, service at church is wonderful, but a lot of the things that I had to step back at were ministry based because I just didn't have extra for service. And that had kind of always been, when my kids were little, kind of it maybe even came before them at certain points. And so where in your time, where in your phone calls, where just in your home, what are those things that are making you just feel really anxious and really overwhelmed? It's really going to tell you what to say no to, but definitely looking at your time, because that will kind of put a flashlight on everything else. You can't always, quit your job and start a new business, but what are those things that would make really big action? And a lot of times it's just having some really hard conversations about who you spend time with and and just what you're doing all the time.
Yeah, it's funny that you were having this conversation today because I noticed when I woke up this morning that my jaw really hurts. And I'm pretty sure that I have been clenching my teeth. I think sometimes I grind my teeth at night. And anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I have noticed in times where there is something that is tensing me up or making kind of my stomach drop when I think about it, then
Yeah.
it is coming out because our bodies always tell us, right? Our bodies are always communicating with us. And
Mhm.
when I felt that this morning, I was like, okay, yeah, this might be a good thing for me to do to really be able to list out. And I've even heard it as like what's life giving and like what's life draining,
Yeah.
and being able to kind of look at that and then saying for the life giving, great, keep as many as you can. But for life draining, what are the things that you can control? Because there are some things, like you said, that you can't. So that is really, really helpful. And so, what are some of these questions, like besides the is this life giving or life draining, if we're able to kind of do that audit? That we can start asking ourselves some of these questions to kind of dig deeper into like what we might do next.
Yeah, I like thinking of the analogy of getting plugged in like a phone charger, right? Like you plug in your phone and you see the number go up and up and up. What are those things that are going to recharge you? So what is restorative? What is recharging? And what is depleting you? Because so many times clients or friends will tell me, well, I don't have time to do that. Well, you have time to work out, right? Or you have time to do that. And those are my non-negotiables because I know what recharges me. And I had never thought about it until kind of life fell apart. I just knew that I never felt recharged. I didn't know why. Also asking yourself just what fills you up. I was, I think, a natural introvert who had forced myself to be so extroverted in ways that I wasn't getting any time alone. I don't think I was in my home alone until TJ passed away in March. And then the following August, my youngest started school. And I think that was the first time I had been alone in about 15 years. And so just what recharges you? Is that reading? Is it going for a walk? The only time that I recommend multitasking is with self-care, because I think a lot of times when you're outside, you're moving your body, you're getting vitamin D, you're getting that sun on your face, you're listening to worship music or one of our podcasts, you're going to come home just literally filled up. And so what is that? And that's why I say redefining self-care, because it's not going to get a pedicure. You might love getting a pedicure. It might be relaxing. It might feel good, but it has to be stuff that fills your soul up for you truly to feel recharged.
Yeah. And I think something that I have learned, just again, we spoke on your podcast about how I consider myself a highly sensitive person. And sometimes I have to look at what is actually causing my nervous system to get more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, elevated, and what helps me to actually calm it. Because my escape for a long time, not anymore, but my escape for a long time was my phone. So the kids are yelling and screaming and it's chaotic and all of these things. I'm going to go to my phone because my phone is the thing that's going to give me the dopamine hit to calm me down, to make me feel like I'm not alone. But the phone is not helping me calm down. The phone actually is causing, us to have cortisol levels rise and not drop. And so for me, I had to really switch that habit, which I was looking at as self-care, but it actually wasn't. And so for me, it's more having to be like the get to a quiet place and do the breathing and do what I need to do to regulate my nervous system. But that isn't really what we're told as moms, is it? It's just like, okay, well, let's see what the friends are doing on Instagram or on the
Or
text
have a
thread
glass
that
of
we're on, or
wine,
have the glass of
or
wine. Yeah, which also raises our cortisol and stress
right.
levels.
Usually true self-care is actually healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, it was really like redefining, like you said, what self-care is. And another aspect of it, I know that you talk about, is just kind of like what has to be done by me versus what could actually be done by others, even if I always say we think they don't do it as well. So, can you talk a little bit about that as far as like when we look at all of these things that might be life draining, kind of asking ourselves whether we're the one that has to do them or not?
Yes, exactly. Well, so before responsibilities, you really look at your roles. So, and which roles do you list on a piece of paper and they just light your heart up, right? Like I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm the daughter of the Almighty God, right? Like I'm a just all of the great things, but then you start to write down more roles that actually are responsibilities. I'm a chauffeur, I'm a short order cook, or I'm right. So you start to then get into your responsibilities and start writing down so many things that you're responsible for. And then you kind of start to see that maybe your pride is keeping you doing things that are not meant for you anymore in this season. Just like you talk about these clothes that don't fit your butt are not meant for your closet anymore. Your responsibilities that maybe, yes, you always did do carpool or you always did watch your girlfriend's kids on Saturday morning or whatever. They were maybe great responsibilities or great things at one time, but now what can you outsource? What can you delegate, and what can you just delete? And there's so much freedom of just saying, no is a complete sentence. I just
Yeah.
said no. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to give a bunch of reasons. I don't have to sell you on it. I can just say, I'm not able to do that anymore. And I mean, it makes me sweat just thinking about it because it is not my natural tendency. But I would have people still asking me to watch their kids because I used to, as a single mom who was trying to, I mean, people will, you have to, I'll say it in a positive light. You have to teach other people how you need to be treated in the season that you're in. And it's
Yeah.
up to you. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're treated a certain way. You're not the victim of it. They're only allowed to treat you that way if you make yourself available for the treatment. And so
Wow.
it is difficult. I'm not saying that it's not. But even just outsourcing and delegating to your children are able to fold towels. They might not put them away the way that you want to, but they can do their laundry. They can do dishes. They can do so many things. They can even make dinner. I mean, they can do so many things that, I just liked done a certain way, so would continue to do them. And then when things got overwhelming, I had to let go. And now that they're older, I see the benefit of that. If I would have kept trying to be the superhero of my home, they wouldn't be the adults that they're turning out to be.
Yes. And I am reminded of that. I had a guest on the podcast who has older kids, and she said that at the age of like 4 or 5, she was having them help or like actually make dinners. Now they were like very basic, obviously, but she's like, yeah. And I had, I think it was 3 or 4 kids and then my husband. And so she was only cooking from the age when her kids were like 4 or 5. She was only cooking one night a week. And then did that for like 18 years or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, teach me your ways. And that was just really eye opening for me because I do have a tendency. They're at the age where I am getting them involved in more things, but it is that kind of like letting go of, okay, yeah, maybe I've always done this, but does it really have to be done by me? And the saying no, my kids at their school, they have cafeteria volunteers or monitors. Okay. So like help the kids open the juice boxes and whatever. And my kids tell me stories about like all of this crazy stuff that happens in the cafeteria. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should never be in there. My husband's like, yeah, you really shouldn't. Not kidding. I got an email yesterday from the PTO like president being like, would you consider being a cafeteria volunteer? And my initial thought is, oh yes, I should. Yes, I should give my time. Yes, I should be
Should.
helping. Should,
That
should, should, should,
evil
should.
word. That's actually the SH word.
I know. Not thinking like, yes, I already am going to the school to do these other things. Like I put the blinders on, I forget about it. No, you asked me. So of course I have to say yes. And
Yeah.
I wrestle with that still, that obligation, that feeling like, well, I should do that if I'm going to be a mom who's supporting my kids and whatever. And that has been so helpful for me that I can say no and not have to explain myself and not be no because blah 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 blah. Like just
Mm-hmm.
being no thank you and just having that be it. So I have not yet responded to the email. I will do it today.
Yes.
But yeah, it's so easy because there's always, especially if we show that we're like a capable, kind human being,
Yep.
everyone is like, oh, could you help with this and help with that and help with that? And that actually reminds me of one of the other things that I remember you saying about like, what are those non-negotiables, but the concept of protecting them. And can you
Mhm.
talk about like
Yeah.
some of those non-negotiables in your own calendar that you fiercely protect? I would love some examples of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my list of non-negotiables came up when I started dating, actually, because I was so scared of dating. And I don't even know where I got the idea, but I made a list of, it wasn't going to be how tall he was or how much money he made, but it was the true core values of who I would even allow to be around my children, or I could even think about starting a life over with. And so now I kind of do that for everything. So my non-negotiables are my self-care plan. It changes from day to day, but I know that I have to put the brakes on when I'm getting anxiety or overwhelmed. And so I feel very high maintenance because my non-negotiables are kind of more vast, I would say, than they've ever been in my life. But you know, I start my workday around 10 or 11 every day. There's so many house things and workouts and different things that have to be done. But let me start at the top. my ultimate non-negotiable is my relationship with God. And we are now a hockey family, and I have never gone to less church in my whole entire life. I've been a worship leader for years, and so I was always having to be at church. So looking at that time with God as truly what is the non-negotiable, that it's not necessarily checking that box of being in church every Sunday, but just making sure that I'm filling my heart with him. And then is my date night with my husband is number two. We do go out every single week. We have older children. They don't need a babysitter. We don't have my stepkids on that night. So it is different. But also with 5 kids and blending families, that has really been the state of the union. I mean, it's not just like, you know, although sometimes we have amazing, beautiful dinners and we get dressed up, a lot of times it's just going down the list of all the kids and what needs to be done. But we just have to have that time and that coffee time in the morning. And then something that has become a non-negotiable, you can tell I'm just going down my roles, right? God, husband, children. I know that I'm not okay when I have not connected with each of the kids, whether, and it's harder as they get older, they're not asking you for things. You have to barge your way into the rooms. And so you'll find your list of non-negotiables as you go through your roles, right? And you'll just be able to see, maybe my business is not getting enough from me right now. I didn't put out a podcast last week because I just thought, you know what? I'm going to take spring break with my family and I don't have a lot in the hopper right now. And so too bad. It's just setting those boundaries and deciding what is the best. Just like how you do a closet, that's really how you do what gets your time and your energy and your heart.
Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful. I always love hearing, especially from moms that have kids, different ages. I'm kind of like looking ahead. I'm like, when is it going to be when my kids don't want me to lay beside them at night before they go to bed? Like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But I think that this is incredibly helpful because you had to, when you went through TJ's death and everything with like your kids, it was a necessity for you to create these boundaries. Like you were doing it out of necessity, but
Yeah.
then it was able to change and evolve. So now it's really like serving you and being able to kind of grow as you go through these different seasons. And I think that I just love how you do that so unapologetically, like, yes, this is what I need, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I have a tendency to over apologize, like, oh, could I go on a walk this morning, but only to my husband, but only if you don't have something going on, or if you don't, we're always
Right.
being like very deferential, like the good girl, the whole thing. And I feel like as I get older, and I'm 43, but I'm just kind of like, no, I just have to be like, this is what I need, like, let's figure it out. So I just love how you've been able to frame this in such a helpful and very empowering way. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm glad. And I wish that I would have done that with the kids when they were little, just said, I have got to have 15 minutes of quiet. It's when I started using essential oils. I would go in the room, in the bathroom, and like take a deep breath before I even knew about breathing techniques. But it was like a second, where kids understand that mom needs a second, or this is quiet time from this time to this time, and tell the dinger dings, you're not welcome to come in my room. Or when my bathroom door is closed, you're not welcome to come to it, right? Like I thought that I had to be available and all things to all people all of the time. And as a natural introvert, I didn't realize how much damage that was doing.
That's so helpful. I really appreciate you sharing all of this, Kari. It's been incredibly helpful. And for anyone that's interested in living with more purpose, exploring essential oils, taking good care of themselves holistically, can you please tell everyone how best to connect with you?
Yes. So my website is thewellteam.com. You'll see different classes of different people in my business, but also under courses, you'll actually see the Find the Purpose course. It's just a digital course that helps you walk through a lot of these. I was a teacher before I had kids, so it's like worksheets that you can fill out and have that visual to actually see what is important to you and also what you want to protect in your own life. I'm on Instagram-ish. I would say I am. It's Kari Davis _ the well. I'm either on quite often or not on at all, but I do kind of post the podcast and my assistant helps me with that. But thewellteam.com is a way to find a lot of the different resources. And when I tell people that I'm in natural health, I also buy Kraft mac and cheese when it's BOGO on sale, right? It's all about, there's no such thing as balance, but there's no shame in that should word that we were talking about is the bad word. And so I want natural remedies and finding your purpose and calming the chaos, just like you help people overcome overwhelm. I want it to feel light and supportive and not like another thing that you should be doing.
Well said. Well said. So I will link to all of those resources in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Kari. It was really such a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, it was amazing. We'll talk again soon.
If you like today's podcast, here's what you can do. Just take 30 seconds to leave me a review. I know you're a busy mama. You're overwhelmed, in fact. But 30 seconds of your day makes such an impact. I'll be blessed by your words. They'll definitely make my day. And who knows, you might be entered for this month's giveaway. In Apple Podcasts, scroll down to write a review. Thanks so much for your time. I'm so grateful for you.